there's a short life in
Why do you think that is, what the creative side is?
Well, because losing out money, you got to take drugs. You're going through so much shit to try and deal with life. You are literally, it's an unhealthy space. And so eventually you're going to go too far, Who knows what happened to Philip? Who knows what Heath had to do in order to get to where he was at? There's a lot of things that people do that end up sitting and they can't get over it. And they got to keep getting high, hoping to get it out of their head, But when you lose your man card, that's the only thing I can think of. You lose your damn man card.
What is that? What do you mean by that?
You give up your ability, your right to being a man. A man don't take it, a man gives it. So when you give up that man card, you don't get that back.
Are you saying what I think you're saying?
No, I'm saying what I'm saying. You don't get that back. You come into this world as a man one time. You give up that right for anything, for fear of being hurt, fear of somebody doing something, for wanting to gain something.
It wasn't just another podcast moment. This was something different. Terrence Howard sat there, eyes glossy, voice cracking, and suddenly dropped a bomb that nobody was ready for. Diddy tried to seek me. The internet froze. This wasn't a skit. This wasn't for laughs. This was a man unpacking something dark, something he's held on to for years. He didn't dance around it. He didn't hint or suggest. He said it straight. He said Diddy lured him in with promises of mentorship, business, creativity, but in reality, it was about control. The real kicker, when he said, Diddy is my boss. Not in the job title sense, but in the I was owned kind of way. Terrence didn't just cry for himself. You could feel it. He was crying for every man who's been in that position. The ones who never got to speak. The ones who still can't.
I've never seen somebody recover from it. That was all the people that went to the puffy parties. That was all the people that did all those things thinking that there was never going to be a consequence for what they were doing. Get punked out and pimped out by some greater desire. You shouldn't have a greater desire than being a man. So I believe that's a...
And why now? Why speak up after all this time? Because the dam is breaking. Diddy's empire is cracking. The lawsuits, the raids, the whispers, they're becoming screams. Terrence knew the risk, but he also knew the power in finally saying it out loud. This wasn't just a confession. It was a wake-up call, and the story was just beginning. The first invitation, Diddy's strange acting lessons. Here's where it gets even weirder. Diddy hit up Terrence on some, yo, I need help with acting, come coach me. At first, Terrence was like, cool, a professional gig, no problem. But when he got there, no scripts, no scenes, just Diddy sitting across from him, watching, staring, not saying much, just vibes, weird vibes. Terrence kept thinking, okay, maybe we're easing into it. But session after session, Diddy never brought up anything work-related. He'd just sit there, silent, almost like he was studying him. The vibe went from awkward to off. Terrence knew something wasn't right, but the moment it clicked, that came from someone close.
Did you ever have the opportunity where you got invited and you said no consequences when you said no?
Puffy invited me for weeks asking me to come and teach him wanted me to be his acting coach for a while. Go there and he's sitting around just looking. I'm like, okay, what's the material you want to work on? He's just looking at it. Then next thing you know, okay, hey, will you help me? I want to hear your music. So I come over there and I play the music. And he's sitting there, just looking at me, like waiting. So then my assistant was like, he wants to hang out with you next week. And I was like, for what? He's like, I think he's trying to fuck you. That's what my assistant said. And I was like, oh, now I get it. So now no more communication. Now you notice to be hands off with somebody. A number of producers come in and make the approach, and you threaten to punch them in the mouth, threaten to knock their head off for talking to you like, or looking at you like you're a woman. You know, when you approach a real man about his masculinity, you're gonna get a real reaction back. It's a difference when a guy walks in a room and when a man walks into a room. And a man don't take the same things that a guy will accept. So always be the man in the room.
His assistant pulled him aside and straight up said, I think he's trying to feek you. Just like that. It wasn't a theory. It was a warning. Suddenly, everything made sense. The invites, the silence, the lingering stares. It wasn't about acting. It was about access, control, desire. Terrence didn't make a scene. He didn't blow it up online. He just stopped responding. Ghosted Diddy completely. But mentally, that moment stuck with him, like a bad dream that keeps replaying, because deep down, he knew he wasn't the only one.
Did you ever have the opportunity where you got invited and you said no to it?
Hell yeah. Puffy invited me for weeks asking me to come and teach him how to, wanted me to be his acting coach for a while. Go there and he's sitting around just looking. I'm like, okay, what's the material you want to work on? He's just looking at me. Then next thing you know, okay, hey, will you help me? I want to hear your music. So I come over there and I play the music. And he's sitting there just looking at me, like waiting. Okay. So then my assistant was like, he wants to hang out with you next week. And I was like, for what? He's like, I think he's trying to fuck you. That's what my assistant said. And I was like, oh, now I get it. So now no more communication. Now you know to be hands off with somebody. A number of producers come in to make the approach, and you threaten to punch them in the mouth, or threaten to knock their head off for talking to you like, or looking at you like you're a woman. And when you approach a real man about his masculinity, you're going to get a real reaction back. It's a difference when a guy walks in a room and when a man walks into a room.
The hidden proposition, when the vibes turned predatory. So now let's get real about what that mentorship really was, because according to Terrence, there was never a direct proposition. It was coded, subtle, but unmistakably predatory. Diddy didn't say, let's hook up. He said things like, hang out more, come by again, let's vibe. But Terrence, he could feel the switch.
No.
Puffy invited me for weeks, asking me to come and teach him how to be his acting coach for a while. Go there and he's sitting around just looking. I'm like, okay, what's the material you want to work on? He's just looking at me. Then next thing you know, okay, hey, will you help me? I want to hear your music. So I come over there and I play the music. And he's sitting there just looking at me, like waiting. Okay. So then my assistant was like, he wants to hang out with you next week. And I was like, for what? He's like, I think he's trying to fuck you. Now I get it. So now no more communication.
There's a difference between a professional ask and someone circling you like a vulture. The energy changed. It stopped being business and turned into seduction. Terrence describes it like being slowly pulled into a web where you either go along with it or risk losing everything. And for a moment, he thought about what would happen if he said no. Would the roles stop? Would producers ghost him? Would he be blackballed? Spoiler, they did. Hollywood is all smiles until you say no. Then suddenly phones stop ringing, opportunities vanish. But Terrence didn't fold. He didn't sell out. He stood his ground. He chose dignity over deals. And yeah, it cost him, but to him, it was worth it. Because once you go down that road, there's no going back. This wasn't about sexuality. This was about power, manipulation, and the twisted ways people like Diddy use their influence to control who rises and who falls.
Principle. And what we were brought in here as men. We produce 1,500 sperm per heartbeat for a reason, because the aggression is necessary. You don't trade that in, no matter what.
Did you ever have the opportunity where you got invited and you said no to it?
Hell yeah.
What was the consequences when you said no?
Puffy invited me for weeks, asking me to come and teach him how to, wanted me to be his acting coach for a while. Go there and he's sitting around just looking. I'm like, okay, waiting. Okay. So then my assistant was like, he wants to hang out with you next week. And I was like, for what? He's like, I think he's trying to fuck you. That's what my assistant said. And I was like, oh, okay. Now I get it. So now no more communication. Now, when you approach a real man about his masculinity, you're going to get a real reaction back. It's a difference when a guy walks in a room and when a man walks into a room. And a man don't take the same things that a guy will accept. So always be the man in the room. And that's always been my whole thing, and have lost businesses because I don't bend over in that way. I don't compromise. I don't play gay roles. I don't kiss a man. I don't do that shit because the man card means everything.
I had no idea we're going to go this direction with the podcast. This is absolute. But listen, we've talked about it. We've had a lot of the guys on to talk about this stuff. Are you done with Hollywood because of this specific reason?
I'm still working. I still. I haven't made the money necessary to do all of the other stuff. So I still have to go and do the chitlin circuit. I still have to do the job that I need to. But eventually, I've done what I set out to do, which was to redefine the universe. I've proven what I've set out to do, and that's why I have all the patents. Whether they evaluate it or not, that's up to them. But I've done the work and finished it. Now I can go on and do whatever else we need to do. Hi, everyone. My name is Terrence Howard. I'm an actor, but in the field of science also. So if you would like to connect with me, you can connect with me on Minect. The QR code is down below, and let's have a great conversation.
If you enjoyed this video, you want to watch more videos like this, click here. And if you want to watch the entire podcast, click here.
Losing your man card, Howard's philosophy. Terrence dropped something in that interview that had people shook, the man card. He said once you give that up, you don't get it back. Now what does that even mean? According to him, it's about integrity, manhood, spiritual grounding, the essence of who you are. And once you trade it away for money, for fame, for comfort, it's gone forever. He says that's the real reason so many stars spiral. Not the fame, not the pressure, but the internal regret of giving up something they can never reclaim. You see them crash, turn to drugs, chase therapy, try to buy happiness because deep down they know they sold out and it eats at them.
Yeah.
What was the consequences when you said no?
Puffy invited me for weeks asking me to come and teach him how to, wanted me to be his acting coach for a while. Go there and he's sitting around just looking. I'm like, okay, what's the material you want to work on? He just looked like waiting. Okay. So then my assistant was like, he wants to hang out with you next week. And I was like, for what? He's like, I think he's trying to fuck you. That's what my assistant said. And I was like, oh, okay. Now, when you approach a real man about his masculinity, you're going to get a real reaction back. It's a difference when a guy walks in a room and when a man walks into a room. And a man don't take the same things that a guy will accept. So always be the man in the room. And that's always been my whole that shit. Because the man card means everything.
I had no idea we're going to go this direction with the podcast. This is absolute. But listen, we've talked about it. We've had a lot of the guys on to talk about this stuff. Are you done with Hollywood because of this specific reason?
I'm still working. I still, I haven't made the money necessary to do all of the other stuff. So I still have to go and do the chitlin circuit. I still have to do the job that I need to. But eventually, I've done what I set out to do, which was to redefine the universe. I've proven what I've set out to do, and that's why I have all the patents. Whether they evaluate it or not, that's up to them. But I've done the work and finished it. Now I can go on and do whatever else we need to do. Hi, everyone. My name is Terrence Howard. I'm an actor, but in the field of science also. So if you would like to connect with me, you can connect with me on Minect. The QR code is down below. And let's have a great conversation.
Terrence brought up names without saying them. He talked about stars who look dead behind the eyes. Millionaires who'd trade it all to undo that one moment where they let someone else hold power over their body and soul. Once you go fluid, he said, you lose your foundation. This ain't about toxic masculinity. This is about self-worth. Howard says, a man gives, he doesn't take. And once you let someone take your manhood, you lose more than your body. You lose your identity. That's what shook people to their core, because it's not just his story, it's Hollywood's cycle chaos. Now it all makes sense. Now with everything Terrence said, suddenly Diddy's current legal situation looks very different. What used to be whispers and blind items is now headlines, raids, federal investigations, Homeland Security storming Diddy's homes, and the charges? Sex trafficking, racketeering, and coercion. Sound familiar? What Terrence described, a powerful figure using manipulation, status, and silence to pressure others, is exactly what the feds are now investigating. It wasn't just parties. These so-called freak-offs were allegedly full of exploitation, with insiders saying celebrities were coerced, filmed, and used as leverage. Multiple accusers have now filed lawsuits, and they're all painting the same picture. Diddy's empire wasn't just built on music, it was built on control. The more stories that come out, the more Terrence's tears make sense. And the internet, they're connecting dots. Fans are calling it hip-hop's Epstein Island. Comment sections are filled with, Diddy's been doing this for years, and now it all makes sense. The narrative is shifting, and Terrence Howard might have just kicked open the door that others were too afraid to touch. Hollywood's dirty secret.
Pick from.
And that's a great question. And there's a standard before you can get in front of a jury. We have a couple of tests. It's from case law. One's called Daubert, D-A-U-B-E-R-T, and one is called Frye, F-R-Y-E. Those are the standards. The judge must, before you can even allow this person to get in front of the jury, they actually have to be an expert. You just can't say I'm an expert in gum chewing. It has to be something that has scientific reliability to the community at whole. After the judge determines it has some level of expertise, the next thing they have to do is what's called a probative versus prejudicial balancing test. The judge has got to make a decision if this is actually going to be probative, helpful, or just prejudicial just to put information in there. For example, you could have a sex position expert. Yes, that might be science, might be expertise, but you just don't want to throw that in front of jury. And third, and the most important thing, the judge has to make the decision, is it actually going to help the trier of fact? Because really, the funny part about it is, all an expert is somebody who knows more than you know. That's it. So we always make the joke that a fifth grader is an expert on everything in the fourth grade.
The silence that protects power. Let's be real, Diddy isn't the only one. He's just the one getting caught. For years, Hollywood has thrived on silence. People know who the creeps are, the predators, the manipulators, but nobody says anything, because if you do, you're done. You get blacklisted, ridiculed, or worse. Terrence Howard exposed that silence. By speaking out, he cracked the wall that's been holding up the entire system. But why does this silence exist in the first place? Because shame is a weapon, especially for men. If a man admits to being manipulated or abused, the industry and society laughs. They mock, they doubt, they dismiss. That's why grooming works so well, because it hides behind mentorship, behind opportunity, behind just chilling. And once it happens, you feel like you can't tell anyone. That's exactly what Terrence described. The slow burn, the gaslighting, the emotional trap. But now, that trap is being exposed. And the moment men like Terrence speak, others start to feel brave enough to share their stories too. What's happening isn't just about celebrity gossip, it's a reckoning. And this time, the silence isn't working. Other men...
So, when they're sequestered, they all live in a house together?
They can put them in a hotel, they can pay for it so nobody can get to them, so they're not at home, because one of the big things we don't want is we don't want undue influence to a juror. We don't want people contacting a juror. We don't want Diddy's team, we don't want the prosecutor, we don't want anybody running into them at the grocery store, at the 7-Eleven, and be like, so what do you think about Diddy? You want them a free and clear mind, just focused on the evidence, which in 2025 is almost impossible.
Right, so they've got these jury questionnaires that they are going to meet up about on April 11th, meet and confer and come up with the questions, and then they're going to get 600 of them. They're going to be printed and distributed 28th, 29th, 30th of April and get the answers back. Then they've got these 4 lists that they present. Prospective jurors that both sides agree should proceed. Prospective jurors that both sides agree should be excused. And then ones that the defense but not the government want, and ones that the government but not the defense want. How do you then come to sort of a coherent understanding of who's going to be your jurors?
So they're going to send out these questionnaires that both sides and the judge can look at together. The defense would send what they want as potential questions, and the judge will say a lot, I'm not asking that, I'm not asking that, I'm not putting that on a questionnaire. The prosecution will send questions, I'm not asking that, I'm not asking that, I'm not asking that, because you can't ask in the questionnaire, do you think Diddy did it? Because that goes to the penultimate question, but you can ask generic stuff. That's going to eliminate, if there's 600 folks, that alone will eliminate, I'd say, about 150. So now you have about 450 people. Then there is going to be things that are called peremptory challenges that we have talked about before, that either side, they get a certain number of challenges that they said, I don't want that guy. Why? Because he's got a Kanye West shirt on. I don't want that guy because he's got a funny hat. As long as it's a race neutral reason, the defense or the prosecution can eliminate anybody.
Did you say race neutral?
It has to be race neutral.
But not gender neutral?
What? That is such a bigger topic, but what ends up happening, and I'll give you a very quick view, you're exactly right, it should be gender neutral, but what we do, our Supreme Court has specifically said there's certain groups of individuals who have been historically treated poorly, and they go in order. So they first start with race neutral, then they start with gender neutral, and it has different levels of scrutiny. So you're right, it's supposed to be a gender neutral reason, but the court doesn't look at that the same way. Because the defense could say, Mr. Kent, why'd you exclude that woman? Well, because she's a woman and this is a case against Diddy and we want to try to keep as many women off the trial as possible. Mr. Kent, did you put any other people who fit that category in the jury? No, Your Honor, our strategy is to get rid of as many women as possible on this jury.
And same story, patterns of abuse. Terrence Howard may be the loudest voice echoing through the industry right now, but he's not the first, and he sure as hell won't be the last. The second Terrence opened up, something shifted. People started whispering louder. Screenshots resurfaced. Cryptic interviews were rewatched with fresh, horrified eyes. Suddenly, what once sounded like conspiracy theory now reads like a roadmap to a bigger truth. Corey Feldman's name came up almost instantly. For years, he's been screaming into the void about a secret circle of powerful men in Hollywood who preyed on young boys. At the time, people rolled their eyes, brushed him off, but now people are putting two and two together. The timelines, the parties, the people. It's all lining up in ways that are too exact to ignore. But it doesn't stop there. Insiders from Diddy's own empire, ex-bodyguards, assistants, music execs, even party staff have started talking, slowly, but they're talking. And the things they're saying, they match up with Terrence's story almost word for word. Diddy wasn't just part of the culture. He allegedly designed it. The invitations, the private jets, the setups, the idea that if you wanted a real shot, you had to play the game. That game, it wasn't about music, it wasn't about acting, it was about power, letting things happen to you, doing things you never agreed to, but were expected to. And some say they were filmed without consent, later blackmailed, threatened into silence. It's the kind of trauma that leaves scars even fame can't cover. And we're not just talking newcomers either. Established rappers, chart toppers, well-known actors. Some have gone on to success, but you can see it in interviews, in the eyes, in the silence. The price they paid was high, and they can't ever fully unpay it. Others, they've vanished, disappeared from the spotlight entirely. Rumors swirl, mental breakdowns, rehab, quiet settlements, careers derailed without explanation. The terrifying part is this, it's a pattern. It's been happening for years. And Terrence, his tearful confession wasn't a solo act. It was the first domino to fall in a long, long line of buried stories. And with Diddy now under federal investigation, those stories aren't staying buried much longer. The truth is rising, and the question now isn't if more men will come forward, it's when. Because the walls that once protected this cycle of abuse, they're starting to crumble, and what's behind them is darker than any of us were ready for. Selling your soul for fame, the industry's dark bargain. This is where it all starts to rot from the inside. Because this story, it's never been just about Diddy. That's just one name, one face. What we're really dealing with is the machine behind him, the system, Hollywood, the music industry, the fake glamour, the pretty lights masking a pipeline of broken people who traded everything just to matter. When Terrence Howard opened up about losing his man card, he wasn't just being metaphorical. He was describing a spiritual transaction, a real irreversible exchange that happens when you step into those rooms and realize that fame costs, and the price tag isn't money, it's your body, your mind, your soul. He said it flat out. Once you go fluid, it's over. Not fluid as in who you love, but fluid in your boundaries, in your morals, in your spiritual compass. That moment you let someone redefine your worth for a seat at the table, you never get it back. You start thinking it's normal, that being touched, watched, filmed, or passed around is just how it works. And the messed up part, that's exactly what they want you to believe. Terrence talked about how easy it is to fall for the trap. First, they flatter you, then they invite you to the parties, the drinks, the compliments, the connections. Suddenly you're in the mansion, you're meeting the names. You think you're making it, but there's a shift, a look, a question, a favor, and if you say yes, boom, you're in, but now they own a piece of you, maybe even all of you. He said you can see it in their eyes. The ones who said yes, the ones who folded. They walk red carpets, hold trophies, smile for photos, but they're empty inside. No peace, no grounding, just quiet desperation. They get the fame, but they lose the core of who they are. Because once you trade your integrity for attention, it's spiritual death, and no amount of followers, awards, or magazine covers can bring that back. And Diddy, he wasn't just participating, he was one of the biggest gatekeepers. If you wanted access to that next level, you had to go through him, and that meant playing his game. And now with everything coming out, the lawsuits, the parties, the pressure, it all makes sense. This is the dark bargain no one talks about, the trade that isn't in the contract. And the deeper you go, the more you realize fame is never free. And in this industry, the true cost is only just being revealed, because now we're seeing the receipts, and they're not pretty. Truth, integrity, and the wake-up call. So now here we are, at the heart of it all. After years of silence, cover-ups, and whispers behind closed doors, we watched Terrence Howard, a man known for his strength, his intellect, and his Hollywood legacy, break down in front of the world. Not for clout, not for views, but because the weight of the truth finally became too heavy to carry alone. When Terrence said Diddy tried to FK me, he wasn't just exposing a man, he was exposing a machine, a twisted network of influence, manipulation, and abuse that's been allowed to run unchecked for decades. decades. And the scariest part, it wasn't just personal, it was systemic. What Terrence revealed is that the real currency in Hollywood isn't talent, it's silence. And when you break that silence, you risk everything. He didn't have to do this. Terrence could have taken the safe route, stayed quiet, focused on his career, cashed in on his patents, smiled for the cameras, but instead, he looked the devil in the face and spoke his truth anyway. That's not just bravery, that's liberation. And it's a blueprint for what real integrity looks like in an industry that often rewards the opposite. The bigger question now is this: how many more stories like his are out there? How many rappers, actors, dancers, producers, men and women have been lured in, used, discarded, and told to shut up? How many are still trapped in contracts, NDAs, or just raw fear? Because if Terrence, with his status and platform, only now felt safe enough to share, imagine the ones who don't feel safe. Imagine how much we still haven't heard. That's why this isn't just about Diddy. This is about accountability. This is about dismantling the unspoken code of silence that's protected too many predators for too long. And it's about truth, because truth doesn't whisper, it screams, it exposes, and most of all, it cleans house. So what now? We amplify, we pay attention, we stop turning a blind eye when things feel off. We support the brave ones who come forward, because silence may be comfortable, but it's also deadly. It allows men like Diddy to thrive. And Terrence, he didn't cry just for himself, he cried for all the ones still stuck in that cycle, the ones who think they're alone, but they're not. And now we know. So what are we going to do with that truth? Because once the truth is out, there's no going back.